Korean Mafia boss sees a black waitress carrying his disabled mother home. He instantly rushed over and then froze. Lee Hoo-jun was in the middle of a business meeting, the kind where business meant negotiating territorial boundaries with the Yakuza, while his hand rested casually on the gun beneath the table, when his phone buzzed with an alert from his mother's medical bracelet. Heart rate elevated. Location: moving away from her care facility. His blood turned to ice. "We're done here," he said in Korean, standing abruptly. The Yakuza lieutenant started to protest, but something in Hoo-jun's expression, the deadly calm that his enemies had learned meant violence was seconds away, made the man reconsider. Hoo-jun was out the door before anyone could object, his security team scrambling to follow. His mother, Park Mi-sun, was 72 and had been wheelchair-bound since the stroke 3 years ago. She was supposed to be safe in the most expensive care facility in Los Angeles, with round-the-clock nursing and security that Hoo-jun personally vetted. She wasn't supposed to be mobile, wasn't supposed to be outside, wasn't supposed to be moving through Koreatown in the rain at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Hoo-jun tracked her bracelet signal, his driver weaving through traffic at speeds that would have gotten anyone else arrested. But the LAPD knew better than to pull over Lee Hoo-jun's matte black Range Rover. They knew who he was, what he controlled, and they knew that some battles weren't worth fighting. He found them 3 blocks from the care facility, and the sight made him slam on the brakes so hard his security detail nearly rear-ended him. A young black woman, small, maybe 5'4", wearing a waitress uniform with a name tag that read Zoe and a jacket that was doing nothing against the downpour, was carrying his mother. Not pushing a wheelchair, not helping her walk. Actually carrying her, one arm under her knees and one supporting her back, struggling against the weight and the rain and the steep incline of Western Avenue. His mother's wheelchair sat abandoned on the sidewalk 2 blocks back, one wheel bent at an angle that explained everything. It had broken, and this stranger, this small woman who looked like she weighed maybe 120 pounds soaking wet, had picked up his 140-pound mother and was carrying her home. Hoo-jun was out of the vehicle before it fully stopped, his long coat billowing behind him as he ran toward them. The woman, Zoe, looked up at the sound of his approach, and their eyes met. Hers were dark brown, exhausted, determined, beautiful in a way that hit him like a physical blow. Rain streamed down her face, and she was breathing hard, but she didn't stop moving. "Let me help," he said in English, already reaching for his mother. "I've got her," Zoe panted, adjusting her grip. "Almost there. Just 2 more blocks. I'm her son. Let me take her." His hands were already sliding under his mother's weight, and Zoe's arms were shaking so badly she had no choice but to let him. The transfer was awkward, intimate, their bodies pressed close for a moment as they maneuvered his mother between them. Up close, Hoo-jun could see everything. The exhaustion in Zoe's eyes, the strength in her lean arms, the way her uniform was plastered to her body, revealing curves that made him forget to breathe, the small scar above her left eyebrow, the determination in the set of her jaw, and the kindness, pure, uncomplicated kindness, in the way she touched his mother's shoulder reassuringly. "It's okay, Mrs. Park," Zoe said softly, squeezing the elderly woman's hand. "Your son's here now. You're safe." His mother looked between them, confused by the stroke-induced aphasia that made communication difficult, but her expression softened when she saw Hoo-jun. "Do," she managed. "Son, I've got you, Uma," Hoo-jun said in Korean, cradling her like she weighed nothing, which to him she did. At 6'2" and 195 pounds of lean muscle earned through years of Muay Thai and necessity, carrying his mother was easy. But watching this stranger struggle to do the same thing, refusing help, determined to see it through, that was something else entirely. "My car's right there," he said to Zoe, nodding toward the Range Rover idling at the curb with 2 very alert security guards watching. "Let me drive you both." Zoe looked at the vehicle, clearly expensive, clearly armored, clearly belonging to someone with serious money and possibly serious problems. Then at Hoo-jun, her gaze caught on the tattoo creeping up his neck, the expensive suit, the way his security team positioned themselves with the practiced efficiency of military operators. "I don't know you," she said carefully. "You're carrying my mother in the rain. I think we're past stranger danger." Your mother wandered out of the care facility because the evening nurse was on her phone instead of watching her. The wheelchair hit a pothole on Wilshire, broke the wheel, and she couldn't get back. I was walking home from my shift and found her crying on the sidewalk. Zoe's voice was steady, but there was anger underneath. So yeah, maybe I don't trust that your fancy care facility is actually taking care of her. Jun's jaw clenched. Someone was getting fired. Possibly worse. You're right, he said quietly. They failed her. You didn't. Let me get you both out of this rain, and then you can tell me everything while I arrange for that nurse to find new employment. Zoe studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but I'm sitting in the back with your mom, and if any of your scary guys try anything weird, I have pepper spray, and I'm not afraid to use it. Despite everything, his mother's vulnerability, the rage building in his chest at the care facility's negligence, the rain soaking through his $3,000 suit, Jun smiled. Fair enough. The drive to his mother's care facility took 7 minutes. Jun spent 6 of them watching Zoe in the rearview mirror. She'd wrapped his mother in the emergency blanket his security team provided and was talking to her in a soft, soothing voice, even though his mother couldn't really respond. She held the older woman's hand, stroked her hair, treated her with a tenderness that made something crack open in Jun's chest. His mother had been alone since his father's death 5 years ago. Jun visited when he could, but his life, the violence, the constant threat, the weight of running an organization that controlled half of LA's Korean underworld, made regular visits dangerous for both of them. He'd chosen the most expensive care facility precisely because he couldn't be there himself, because he'd thought money could replace presence. Watching this stranger give his mother more compassion in 10 minutes than he'd managed in months made him feel like the worst son in the world. At the facility, Jun carried his mother inside while Zoe followed, dripping water on the pristine marble floors. The night supervisor, a thin white woman named Patricia, rushed over with apologies already forming on her lips. Mr. Lee, I am so sorry. We had no idea she'd... Where was the evening nurse? Jun's voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. The kind of quiet that made his enemies confess to things he hadn't even asked about. She was attending to another patient. She was on her phone, Zoe interrupted. I saw her through the window when I walked past earlier. Scrolling through Instagram while your patients need help. Patricia's face went pale. I'll investigate immediately. You'll fire her immediately, Jun corrected, and you'll review every staff member's phone records for the past month. Anyone who's been negligent gets terminated, with prejudice. Do you understand? Yes, Mr. Lee, of course, right away. After his mother was settled, checked by the doctor on call, changed into dry clothes, given her evening medication, Jun found Zoe in the hallway, staring at a painting of orchids with an expression he couldn't quite read. Thank you, he said simply, for what you did. Most people would have called 911 and kept walking. Most people are assholes, Zoe replied without looking at him. Your mom was scared and alone. I wasn't going to just leave her. Still, let me repay you. Dinner? Or... He pulled out his wallet, extracting a stack of $100 bills. Zoe's expression hardened. I don't want your money. It's not a payment. It's a thank you. It's insulting. She finally turned to face him fully, and Jun saw the exhaustion etched into her features. The way her shoulders sagged, the slight tremor in her hands from muscle fatigue. I didn't help your mom for a reward. I helped her because she needed help. That's what decent human beings do. The rebuke stung precisely because it was accurate. In Jun's world, everything was transactional. Every favor came with strings. Every kindness hid an agenda. The idea that this woman had simply done something good because it was right felt foreign. Suspicious even. Then let me drive you home, he said. It's still raining, you're exhausted, and it's late. I can take the bus. The buses stopped running on your route 20 minutes ago. I checked. At her suspicious look, he added, my phone has apps. I'm controlling, not omniscient. Zoe's lips twitched toward a smile. Fine, but just a ride. No weird billionaire stuff. I'm not a billionaire. The car says otherwise. The car says I value safety and German engineering. He gestured toward the exit. Shall we? Zoe lived in a modest apartment building in mid-city, the kind with security bars on the windows and a permanently broken intercom. Hu Jun's security team did a visible sweep of the area before allowing him to walk her to the entrance, which made Zoe laugh. "You always travel with an armed escort?" she asked. "When necessary. And when is it not necessary?" "Never." He held the building door open for her. "I have enemies." "I'm shocked," Zoe said dryly. "You seem so friendly and approachable." Hu Jun found himself smiling again. Something he did so rarely, his face almost felt strange. "You're very funny for someone who just carried a full-grown woman 3 blocks in the rain." "I'm hilarious. It's my best quality." Zoe paused at the stairs. The elevator was, of course, broken. "Thank you for the ride. And tell your mom I hope she feels better." "Wait." The word came out more urgently than Hu Jun intended. Zoe turned back, eyebrow raised. "I meant what I said about dinner. Not as payment. As, I'd like to get to know the person who showed my mother more kindness than anyone has in years." "You don't know me. I could be a serial killer." "Are you?" "Not yet. But the night's young. Then dinner would be a good opportunity for me to assess your homicidal tendencies." Hu Jun pulled out his phone. "Give me your number. I'll text you details." Zoe hesitated, clearly weighing the wisdom of giving her contact information to a man who traveled with armed security and had a neck tattoo that definitely didn't say accountant. But then she sighed and rattled off her number. "This doesn't mean I like you," she said. "This means I'm hungry and I'm curious about what kind of restaurant a guy like you considers dinner-worthy." "Noted. Friday at 7? I work until 9. Then Saturday at 7. I work lunch shift, so that works. But somewhere normal. No places that require a jacket or have more than 2 forks. I'll find something appropriately casual." He smiled. "See you Saturday, Zoe." "See you Saturday, Mr. Lee." "Hu Jun, call me Hu Jun." She nodded, then disappeared up the stairs. Hu Jun stood in the dingy lobby for a full minute after she left, feeling something he hadn't experienced in years. Anticipation. Not for violence or power or the next strategic move, just for the simple pleasure of seeing someone again. His head of security, a former Arak Army sergeant named Kang, cleared his throat. "Boss, we should go. This neighborhood isn't secure." "Then secure it," Hu Jun said absently, still staring at the stairs. "I want eyes on this building. Rotating surveillance, unmarked vehicles. If anyone suspicious comes near her, I want to know immediately." "Boss, is that wise? Getting involved with a civilian?" Hu Jun thought about the way Zoe had looked at him. No fear, no deference, just direct assessment. The way she'd refused his money. The way she'd carried his mother without hesitation or expectation of reward. The way she made him feel almost human instead of the monster his life had required him to become. "Probably not," he admitted. "Do it anyway." Saturday arrived with the nervous energy of a first date, which was ridiculous because Lee Hu Jun didn't get nervous. He'd stared down rival gang leaders, had negotiated with cartel representatives while guns were pointed at his head, had taken over his father's organization at 23, and consolidated power through a combination of strategic brilliance and carefully applied violence. But choosing what to wear to dinner with a waitress who'd probably seen every manipulation tactic in existence? Terrifying. He settled on dark jeans and a black button-down. Expensive but understated. Left the Rolex in the safe. Chose the Omega instead. Still expensive, but less "I'm compensating for something." Debated the leather jacket, decided against it. Too trying hard. The pea coat instead. Classic. Kang watched this entire performance with barely concealed amusement. "Boss, you're aware you're more nervous about this date than you were about the Triad Summit last month?" "The Triad Summit didn't matter. We were negotiating a $50 million shipping agreement. Like I said, didn't matter." Hu Jun checked his reflection one final time. The tattoo on his neck, a Korean dragon that started behind his ear and curved down beneath his collar, was partially visible. He'd gotten it at 19, angry and grieving after his father's death, wanting to wear his power visibly. Now he wondered if it would scare Zoe off. Too late to worry about it now. He picked her up at 7 exactly, driving himself in a Tesla rather than the Range Rover. Less intimidating, more normal. Zoe emerged from her building in dark jeans and a burgundy sweater that hugged her curves and made Hu Jun forget how to breathe for a solid 5 seconds. "You're staring," she said, climbing into the passenger seat. "You're beautiful." I'm honest. He pulled into traffic. Is that a problem? Depends on what else you're honest about. Zoe settled into the seat, studying the car's interior. This is different from the tank you drove Tuesday. Thought you'd appreciate something less paramilitary. I appreciate the effort. Where are we going? You said no fancy places. I'm taking you to the best hole-in-the-wall Thai restaurant in LA. Plastic chairs, questionable health code compliance, and food so good you'll dream about it for weeks. Zoe's smile was genuine this time. Okay, you're off to a good start. The restaurant was exactly as promised. Cramped, hot, smelling like lemongrass and chili paste, with a menu that was 80% in Thai and plastic tables that wobbled. Jun watched Zoe's face light up as she tried the tom yum soup, the way her eyes closed in appreciation, the small sound of pleasure she made that sent heat straight through him. This is incredible, she said, reaching for more. How did you find this place? The owner's son got into trouble with some loan sharks a few years ago. I helped resolve the situation. They've been grateful ever since. You helped resolve it how? Zoe's eyes narrowed. Please tell me you didn't kill anyone. I didn't kill anyone. I just convinced the loan sharks that continuing to collect on that particular debt would be unwise. Convince them violently? I prefer persuasively. Zoe set down her spoon. Okay, we need to address the elephant in the room. What exactly do you do, Jun? Because the security team, the neck tattoo, the casual mentions of enemies and persuasion, you're clearly not in imports-exports. Jun had known this conversation was coming, had debated how much truth to tell her. In his experience, civilians ran when confronted with the reality of his world. But Zoe had asked for honesty, and she deserved it. My family runs a Korean organized crime syndicate, he said bluntly. We control gambling, protection, some smuggling operations throughout Southern California. I took over when my father was killed 5 years ago. I'm what you'd call a gang leader, or mafia boss if you prefer the Italian terminology. Zoe didn't flinch, didn't gasp, just nodded slowly. I knew it was something like that. The question is, should I be scared of you? I would never hurt you. That's not what I asked. Should I be scared of you? Of what being around you means? Jun wanted to lie, wanted to promise her safety and normalcy and all the things she deserved, but she'd asked for truth. Yes, he said quietly. You should be. My enemies would use you against me. Being seen with me puts a target on your back, and I can't promise that my protection would always be enough. Okay, appreciate the honesty. Zoe took another bite of soup, chewing thoughtfully. Follow-up question. Why did you ask me out knowing that? Knowing you're putting me at risk? Because I'm selfish, Jun admitted. Because when I saw you carrying my mother, refusing money, treating her with kindness you owed her nothing for, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Hope, maybe, or possibility. And I wanted to explore that even though I shouldn't. And what if I say this is too much? That I'm a waitress from mid-city who can't handle Korean mafia drama? Then I'll drive you home, make sure you're protected until any interest in you fades, and never bother you again. His jaw clenched. But I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Zoe studied him for a long moment, dark eyes searching his face for something. Truth, probably, or lies. I grew up in Inglewood, she said finally. My dad was killed in a drive-by when I was 8. Wrong place, wrong time. Just another statistic. My mom raised 3 kids alone, working 2 jobs, barely keeping us fed. I know what violence looks like, what it costs. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just understand that I'm not some sheltered girl who doesn't know the world is dangerous. I've lived with danger my whole life. The difference is, you're being honest about yours. She reached across the table, touching his hand. The contact sent electricity through him. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to finish this dinner. You're going to tell me more about your life. The real stuff, not sanitized versions. And I'm going to decide if this is something I want to explore. Deal? Deal, Jun said, lacing his fingers through hers. What do you want to know? They talked for 3 hours. Jun told her about inheriting the organization at 23, about the violence required to hold power, about the legitimate businesses he was building to transition away from crime, about his father's murder, shot in the street by a rival gang while Jun watched, helpless, about the revenge he'd taken, the empire he'd consolidated, the weight of responsibility that crushed him daily. Zoe told him about her mother's death from cancer 2 years ago, about her younger siblings who still depended on her, about dropping out of USC to work full-time when the money ran out, about dreams of finishing her degree someday, maybe becoming a teacher, giving back to kids like she'd been. "Why do you still work at the diner?" Hoo-jun asked. "With your intelligence, you could do anything. Because degrees cost money I don't have. Because my brother's in community college and my sister's in high school, and they need support. Because I'm good at waitressing and it pays my bills, and I'm not ashamed of honest work." Her tone was defensive, challenging him to judge. "I wasn't criticizing, I was admiring. You're 26, and you've already sacrificed your own dreams for family. That's more honorable than anything I've done. You take care of your mother, that's honorable. I pay people to take care of my mother. You literally carried her home in the rain. There's a difference." Zoe squeezed his hand. "You're being too hard on yourself. You visit her, don't you? Make sure she has the best care? That matters. Not as much as being there myself, but my life? It's complicated. Then uncomplicated." Hoo-jun laughed, the sound bitter. "If only it were that simple. Maybe it is. Maybe you're just scared." Zoe leaned forward, eyes intense. "You said you're trying to go legitimate. Why? For your mother? For yourself? Or because you're tired of being the monster your life made you?" The question hit like a physical blow. No one had ever asked him that. No one had ever seen past the power and violence to the exhaustion underneath. "All three," he admitted. "I'm tired, Zoe. Tired of violence. Tired of watching my back. Tired of becoming more like the men who killed my father every single day." "Then stop." "I can't just stop. I have responsibilities. People depending on me. Enemies who'd see any weakness as an opportunity." "I didn't say quit. I said stop. Stop thinking you have to carry everything alone. Stop believing you're only valuable as a weapon. Stop punishing yourself for surviving when your father didn't." Her voice softened. "You're allowed to want more than this, Hoo-jun. You're allowed to be more." Something cracked in Hoo-jun's chest, something he'd kept locked away since his father's death, since the night he'd stopped being a son and became a leader, became a killer, became the monster Los Angeles's underworld feared. "What if I don't know how to be anything else?" he whispered. "Then you learn, one day at a time, one choice at a time." Zoe stood, pulling him up with her. "Take me somewhere, somewhere that matters to you. Show me who you are when you're not being the boss." Hoo-jun drove them to Griffith Park, to a hiking trail that overlooked the city. It was nearly midnight. The trail technically closed, but that had never stopped him before. They climbed in comfortable silence, Hoo-jun matching his pace to Zoe's, until they reached a viewpoint where Los Angeles sprawled below them like scattered diamonds. "I come here when it gets too heavy," Hoo-jun said, settling on a rock. "When the violence and politics and weight of everything feels like it's crushing me. Up here I can breathe." Zoe sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "It's beautiful. My father brought me here the week before he died. Told me that no matter how dark things got, there was always light if I remembered to look up." Hoo-jun's throat tightened. "I think about that a lot. About how he tried to prepare me, even knowing he might not survive. About how he never wanted this life for me. What did he want? For me to go to college, become a doctor or lawyer, something legitimate, something safe. But when he died, someone had to take over. Someone had to protect what he'd built, care for the people who depended on him. I was the only son. It fell to me. You were 23. That's too young to inherit that much responsibility. Tell that to the men who would have torn the organization apart fighting for power. Tell that to the families who depended on my father's protection. Tell that to my mother, who needed care I couldn't afford without the organization's resources." Hoo-jun's hands clenched. "I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. You chose family, chose responsibility. That's not weakness, Hoo-jun. That's strength. It doesn't feel like strength. It feels like a prison." Zoe turned to face him fully. "Then what would freedom look like? If you could walk away from all of this, what would you do?" No one had ever asked him that. In 5 years of running the organization, of making decisions that affected hundreds of lives, of building and destroying and surviving, no one had asked what he actually wanted. "I'd finished my degree," he said slowly. "I was studying business at UCLA when my father died. I'd like to complete that. Maybe get an MBA. Build something entirely my own, entirely legal. That's still possible. While running a criminal empire? Unlikely. Then maybe it's time to choose. Really choose. Not what your father needed, not what the organization expects, what you want." Zoe's hand found his in the darkness. "Life's too short to spend it being someone you hate." Hoojun looked down at their joined hands, her small dark one in his larger scarred one. A study in contrast. A waitress and a crime boss. Innocence and violence. Light and shadow. It shouldn't work. But holding her hand felt more right than anything had in years. "You make it sound simple," he said. "It is simple. Not easy, but simple. You decide what kind of man you want to be, and you become that. One choice at a time. And if the choices I've already made define me, if I can't escape what I've done, then you add new choices. Better ones. Louder ones." She shifted closer. "Hoojun, I barely know you, but I know you carried your mother like she was made of glass. I know you tipped the waitress at that Thai place 100% without making it a production. I know you come to this viewpoint when the darkness gets too heavy because you're still looking for light. Those choices matter too." He wanted to kiss her, wanted it with an intensity that was almost painful. But he forced himself to wait, to let her lead, to prove he could be patient, gentle, something other than the violent man his life had required. Zoe seemed to read his mind. "You can kiss me," she said softly. "I can see you wanting to. You don't have to be careful with me. I won't break." "I know you won't break, but you deserve to be treated like you're precious anyway." "Then treat me like I'm precious." She cupped his face, thumb tracing the edge of his tattoo. "Kiss me, Hoojun." He did. Soft at first, testing, learning the shape of her lips and the taste of her breath. Then deeper as she responded, her fingers threading through his hair, pulling him closer. The kiss was everything, promise and possibility, and the desperate hope that maybe he could be more than what he'd become. When they finally broke apart, Zoe rested her forehead against his. "That was a good choice," she whispered. "Yeah," Hoojun agreed, still trying to remember how to breathe. "Yeah, it was." The next 3 months unfolded like a dream Hoojun was terrified to wake from. He saw Zoe whenever their schedules aligned, dinners between her shifts, late-night drives to secret viewpoints, quiet mornings at the care facility visiting his mother. She integrated into his life in ways he hadn't expected, refusing to be intimidated by his world while simultaneously refusing to pretend it didn't exist. She met his lieutenants and treated them like regular people instead of dangerous criminals. Learned basic Korean phrases to communicate better with his mother. Called him out when he made decisions from fear instead of principle. And slowly, impossibly, Hoojun found himself changing. He started delegating more, trusting his lieutenants to handle day-to-day operations while he focused on the legitimate businesses. Enrolled in online classes to finish his degree. Reduced the organization's involvement in the riskier operations, drugs, weapons trafficking, anything that could bring federal attention. Some of his father's old guard resisted, but Hoojun's reputation for swift, decisive violence kept dissent minimal. Zoe's influence was obvious to everyone. Kang mentioned it one evening while they reviewed security protocols. "You're different, boss. Softer." "Softer?" Hoojun's tone was dangerous. "Better. I meant better. More." Kang struggled for the word. "Human. You smile now. Didn't used to." It was true. Hoojun caught himself smiling at random moments. Reading Zoe's texts, remembering something she'd said, anticipating their next date. The constant weight on his chest had lightened. The rage that usually simmered just beneath his surface had cooled to something manageable. But peace never lasted. Not in his world. The threat came on a Tuesday. Hoojun was in a meeting with his financial advisor, reviewing profit and loss statements for his legitimate holdings, when Kang burst in without knocking. That alone told him something was catastrophically wrong. "Boss, we have a situation." Kang's face was grim. The Sinaloa are making moves. They've been quietly buying up properties in our territory, building a pipeline for distribution, and they've identified your weak point. Ice flooded Hu Jun's veins. Zoe, they have photos, her apartment, her work, her route home. They know she matters to you, and they're threatening to use that knowledge unless you cede territory. Hu Jun was moving before conscious thought kicked in. Get her. Now. Full security detail. Bring her to the safe house. Already done. She's en route. Kang fell into step beside him. Boss, they're serious. This isn't posturing. They've killed 3 of our street-level guys in the past week. They're forcing a confrontation. Then they'll get one. Hu Jun's voice was flat, cold, the tone that made hardened criminals step back. Call a meeting, all lieutenants. I want options on the table in an hour. The safe house was a fortress, disguised as a modest home in Pasadena. Bulletproof windows, reinforced doors, panic rooms, enough firepower to hold off a small army. Zoe was already there when Hu Jun arrived, sitting in the living room with a very nervous-looking guard, still wearing her diner uniform. What's going on? She demanded the moment she saw him. Your guys showed up at my work, said there was a threat, bundled me into a car without explanation. You're in danger. Hu Jun crossed to her, hands framing her face, checking for any sign of harm. A rival organization is targeting you to get to me. I need you to stay here until I resolve the situation. Resolve it how? However necessary. Zoe pulled back, eyes searching his. Hu Jun, what are you going to do? He wanted to lie, wanted to spare her the ugly truth of what protection meant in his world, but they'd built their relationship on honesty, and he wouldn't insult her now. I'm going to eliminate the threat, permanently. You mean you're going to kill people? I'm going to protect what's mine. If that requires killing, then yes. And what happens after? You kill their leaders, their organization retaliates. You kill more, they kill more. Where does it end, Hu Jun? It ends when they understand that touching you means death. It ends when the cost of targeting me becomes too high. It ends when I've made it clear that some lines don't get crossed. Zoe stood, pacing the length of the room. This is exactly what you said you were trying to leave. The violence, the revenge, the endless cycle. I know, but they threatened you. That changes everything. So I'm your weakness now? The liability that drags you back into the life you hate? You're not a weakness. Hu Jun caught her hands, pulling her to a stop. You're the only thing that matters, and I will burn the entire city down before I let anyone hurt you. That's not romantic, Hu Jun. That's terrifying. Tears gleamed in Zoe's eyes. Because it means loving me turns you into the monster you're trying not to be. The words hit like a gut punch, because she was right. Since meeting Zoe, he'd been slowly clawing his way towards something better. And now, faced with a threat to her safety, every instinct screamed for blood, for violence, for the brutal efficiency that had kept him alive and in power for 5 years. What do you want me to do? He asked quietly. Let them threaten you? Hope they'll leave you alone if I'm diplomatic? I want you to be smart instead of reactive. I want you to think about what your father would have done. The man who brought you to Griffith Park and told you to look for light. Would he have started a war? Or would he have found another way? Hu Jun thought about his father, about the man who'd built an empire through strategy as much as strength, who'd always said that violence was the last resort of men who lacked imagination, who'd tried to protect his son from this exact spiral. He would have negotiated, Hu Jun admitted, found their price, given them something they wanted more than territory. Then do that. Be the man your father raised, not the monster his death created. And if negotiation fails, if they want blood regardless, then you protect me without losing yourself. Zoe cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. I'm not asking you to be weak. I'm asking you to be smart, to be the man I fell in love with, not the man everyone expects you to be. The casual admission, fell in love with, made Hu Jun's heart stop. Say that again. Which part? The part about falling in love with me. Zoe smiled despite the tension. I fell in love with you, you idiot. Probably the moment you let me pepper spray threaten your security team and didn't laugh. Definitely by the time you admitted you were tired of being a monster. Why do you think I'm so invested in you not becoming one? Hu Jun kissed her then, desperate and claiming and full of every emotion he didn't have words for. I love you, he said against her lips. I love you, and I swear I'll find a way to protect you without becoming what I hate. That's all I'm asking. The negotiation happened in neutral territory, a warehouse in Vernon owned by neither organization. Hu Jun brought Kang and two other lieutenants. The Sinaloa brought their local enforcer, a man named Hector with a reputation for creative brutality. You want my territory, Hu Jun said without preamble. What's it worth to you? Hector smiled. Straight to business. I respect that. Your territory's worth a lot. Access to the ports, established distribution networks, protection from local authorities. But what we really want is a partnership. I'm listening. You're going legitimate. Everyone knows it. You're pulling back from the profitable operations, focusing on legal shit that takes years to pay off. That leaves gaps. Gaps we can fill for a percentage. Hector leaned back. We're not trying to destroy you, Lee. We're trying to make money, and we can both make more money working together than fighting. It made sense. Cold, pragmatic sense. Hu Jun could maintain his territory, continue his legitimate businesses, and gradually phase out criminal involvement by handing operations to the Sinaloa for a cut. Everyone won, except... And the threats to Zoe? The photos? The intimidation? Hector had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. Business tactic. We needed leverage. But if we're partners, she's protected. By both organizations. Anyone touches her, they answer to both of us. I want that in writing. A formal protection agreement. Anyone in either organization harms her, they're executed. No exceptions. Done. Anything else? I want complete control over which operations you take over. Nothing that brings federal heat. Nothing that targets kids or involves trafficking. Clean money only. Hector considered. That limits our options. That's my price. Take it or we go to war, and I promise you, the cost will be higher than you're imagining. The threat hung in the air. Hu Jun could see Hector calculating, weighing the profit of partnership against the cost of conflict with a man who'd held power for 5 years through ruthless efficiency. Finally, Hector nodded. Okay, we have a deal. Hu Jun returned to the safe house as the sun rose over Los Angeles, exhausted but relieved. Zoe was asleep on the couch, still in her uniform, and something about the sight, her trust that he'd come back, her peaceful vulnerability, made his chest ache. He knelt beside her, brushing hair from her face. Zoe, wake up! Her eyes fluttered open. Did you kill anyone? No, I negotiated. We have a partnership deal, protection agreement for you, and a path to fully legitimate operations within 3 years. Zoe sat up, fully awake now. You're serious? They agreed to that? They agreed. Turns out everyone makes more money cooperating than fighting. Who knew? He smiled tiredly. You were right. About finding another way. About being smart instead of reactive. I'm always right. You should remember that. Zoe pulled him onto the couch beside her, curling into his chest. I'm proud of you for choosing differently. I almost didn't. Every instinct screamed for blood. But then I thought about what you said, about my father, about the man I want to be. Hu Jun held her tighter. You make me better, Zoe. You make me want to be better. Good, because I have plans for you, Lee Hu Jun. And they don't include you dying in a gang war or going to prison. What kind of plans? The kind where you finish your degree, build your legitimate empire, and eventually put a ring on my finger. If you're interested. Hu Jun pulled back to look at her. Are you proposing to me? I'm stating my intentions. Big difference. Zoe's smile was soft. But yeah, if we're doing this, I'm all in. I want the whole thing. The life, the future, the choice to be better together. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. She kissed him softly. Take me home. The real home. Not this fortress. I want to sleep in a bed that doesn't have a panic room attached. My penthouse has 3 panic rooms. Of course it does. You're ridiculous. But she was smiling as she said it. The transition took longer than 3 years. Took 5, actually. 5 years of carefully extracting himself from criminal operations while building legitimate alternatives. 5 years of night classes in business development and learning to lead without violence. 5 years of Zoe beside him, finishing her own degree, opening a community center for at-risk youth, being the moral compass he'd lost somewhere in the darkness. His mother lived to see him graduate from UCLA, Master's in Business Administration, summa cum laude. She cried through the entire ceremony, gripping Zoe's hand with the strength the stroke hadn't taken, signing her pride in the broken Korean sign language Jun had taught himself to communicate with her after the stroke affected her speech. The wedding was small, just family and close friends, held at the care facility so his mother could attend. Zoe wore white and gold, traditional and stunning. Jun wore a custom suit and cried when she walked down the aisle, not caring who saw. I, Zoe Marie Chen, take you, Lee Jun, to be my lawfully wedded husband, Zoe said, voice strong and clear. I promise to love you through the darkness and the light, to remind you who you are when the weight gets heavy, to build something beautiful with you from all the broken pieces we've survived, for as long as we both shall live. I, Lee Jun, take you, Zoe Marie Chen, to be my lawfully wedded wife, Jun managed, voice rough with emotion. I promise to deserve you, to choose light over darkness every single day, to protect you without losing myself, to be the man you saw in me before I saw it myself, for as long as we both shall live and whatever comes after. They kissed as the sun set through the facility's windows, and Jun thought about the night he'd seen a small black woman carrying his mother through the rain. Thought about how one moment of kindness had changed the entire trajectory of his life, how love had done what violence never could, made him free. 10 years after that first meeting, Jun stood in the offices of Lee Enterprises, the legitimate business empire he'd built from the ashes of his father's criminal organization. On the wall hung a photo of his father, young and strong, the caption reading, Park Jin-ho, founder, 1950-2019. He dreamed we could be more. Beside it hung a newer photo, Zoe carrying his mother through the rain, caught by one of the security cameras outside the care facility. The image that had started everything. Jun had it framed, a reminder that sometimes salvation came in the form of a stranger's kindness. Daddy! A small voice interrupted his reflection. Jun turned to find his daughter, Misun, named for his mother, inheriting Zoe's smile and his intensity, running toward him with a finger painting. Look what I made! He scooped her up, studying the artwork seriously. Blue and purple swirls, something that might have been a flower or a dragon or pure childhood imagination. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Should we hang it in my office? Next to Grandma. Misun pointed at the wall of photos. Perfect spot. He carried her to the wall, letting her place the painting where she wanted. Behind them, the office door opened and Zoe entered. Their son, 2-year-old Jin, named for Jun's father, balanced on her hip. There you are, Zoe said, smiling. Your mother's care facility called. She wants to see everyone for dinner tonight. Something about teaching the kids how to make kimchi. Jun's mother had survived the stroke by 12 years now, defying every medical prediction. She'd met her grandchildren, watched her son transform from criminal to entrepreneur, seen the impossible future her husband had dreamed of become real. Tell them we'll be there, Jun said, crossing to kiss Zoe. After 10 years of marriage, the sight of her still made his heart race. How was the center today? Good. We got the grant for the new wing. We'll be able to expand programming, hire more staff, reach twice as many kids. Zoe's community center had grown from a small operation to a major force in the community, providing education, job training, and mentorship to thousands of at-risk youth. One of our kids got accepted to Stanford, full scholarship. That's amazing. Jun pulled her close, their children between them. You're changing the world, you know that? We're changing the world. Together. Like we promised. Misun wiggled impatiently. Can we go see Grandma now? In a bit, baby. Jun set her down, watching her run off to play with her brother. Then to Zoe. Do you ever regret it? Getting involved with me? The danger, the complications, all of it? Never. Zoe's answer was immediate, certain. You? Not once. You saved me, Zoe. That night carrying my mother, you saved my life without knowing it. You saved mine too. Just took us both a while to realize it. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their children play, the city sprawling beyond the windows. Hu Jun thought about his father, about the empire built on violence, and the dream of something better. About his mother surviving against all odds to see that dream realized. About Zoe, who'd seen past the monster to the man underneath. "I love you," he said quietly. "I know," Zoe replied, smiling. "I've known since you tried to pay me for carrying your mom, and I threatened you with pepper spray. Best threat I ever received. Best choice I ever made." And it was, for both of them. The choice to see past surfaces to substance, to offer kindness without expectation, to build something beautiful from broken pieces, to love despite the cost, to be brave enough to change. 20 years later, Hu Jun would stand at his mother's funeral and tell the story of how a stranger carried her through the rain. How that single act of compassion had saved not one life but three, his mother's, his own, and the future they'd built together. How sometimes the most important moments came disguised as ordinary kindness. But that was future pain. Present moment was this: his family whole, his mother alive, his empire legitimate, and the woman he loved standing beside him, living proof that redemption was possible, that people could change, that love could transform even the darkest life into something bright. "Come on," Zoe said, gathering their children. "Your mom's waiting, and you know how she gets when we're late." Hu Jun followed his family out of the office, turning off the lights on photos of the past and walking into the brightness of the future. A future built on the foundation of one rainy night, one act of kindness, and one woman who'd seen a man worth saving beneath the monster's mask. Sometimes salvation comes in unexpected forms. Sometimes it looks like a small black woman carrying a stranger through the rain. Sometimes it sounds like "I've got her" when the world says to walk away. Sometimes it feels like the first honest choice after years of doing what's expected instead of what's right. And sometimes, just sometimes, salvation looks like a second chance. A new beginning. A love strong enough to rewrite the ending you thought was inevitable. Lee Hu Jun had been many things. A son, a criminal, a monster, a boss. But the title he wore with the most pride was the simplest one: Zoe's husband. The man who'd been saved by kindness and learned to pay it forward. The man who'd chosen light over darkness, love over violence, hope over despair. Every single day, one choice at a time, just like she'd taught him. 30 years later, the community center bore both their names now: the Lee Chen Foundation for Youth Development. It occupied an entire city block in what had once been the heart of gang territory, transformed through decades of investment and care into something vibrant and alive. Hu Jun, now 58, walked through the halls with Zoe beside him. 56, still beautiful, her hair silver but her eyes still bright with the fire that had first captivated him. They moved slowly now, age catching up with bodies that had worked hard and loved harder. "Remember when this was just one room?" Zoe asked, gesturing at the sprawling complex. "When we didn't know if we'd make next month's rent. I remember you told me we'd change the world. I thought you were being optimistic. I was right, though. You usually are." The center now served 10,000 kids annually, provided education, job training, mentorship, mental health services, arts programming, had a 95% high school graduation rate, and sent over 200 kids to college each year, had been replicated in 15 other cities, had literally changed thousands of lives. Their daughter, Mi-sun, now 33, ran the foundation. Brilliant, compassionate, fierce in her belief that every child deserved a chance. She'd gotten her law degree, worked as a public defender, then come home to expand what her parents had built. Their son, Jin, 31, had become a doctor specializing in stroke rehabilitation. Every patient he helped was a tribute to the grandmother who'd survived against all odds, who'd lived to see him graduate medical school, who'd passed peacefully in her sleep at 89, surrounded by the family she'd sacrificed everything to protect. "She'd be proud," Zoe said, reading his mind as always. "Your mom, seeing what we built." She was already proud, told me every single day. Hu Jun smiled at the memory. "But yeah, she'd love this." They reached the building's heart, a memorial garden dedicated to Park Ma-sun, benches surrounded by flowers, a fountain bubbling peacefully, and a statue, a woman being carried by a stranger, frozen in bronze. The plaque read, "In memory of Park Ma-sun," and in honor of unexpected kindness. One moment of compassion can change the world. Jun and Zoe sat on their usual bench, hand in hand, watching the sun set through the garden's trees. Around them, kids laughed and played, safe and cared for in ways they'd never been. "Do you think we did enough?" Jun asked quietly. "Changed enough lives? Made enough difference?" "We did what we could. That's all anyone can do." Zoe squeezed his hand. "And look around, Jun. Really look. Every kid here is alive because we chose differently. Because you chose differently." He looked, saw teenagers mentoring younger kids, saw children reading books in the library they'd funded, saw families sharing meals in the community kitchen, saw hope in places where despair used to live. And he understood. This was his father's legacy. Not the criminal empire, but the dream underneath. Safety, opportunity, community. "I love you," he said for the millionth time in 30 years, "for saving me, for believing I could be more, for never giving up. I love you for letting me save you, for choosing to be saved, for becoming the man I always knew you could be." They sat in comfortable silence as stars began to appear overhead. Around them, the city hummed with life, their children raising their own families, the communities they'd served thriving, the future bright with possibility. And if sometimes Jun still dreamed of that rainy night 30 years ago, of seeing a stranger carry his mother through the darkness, refusing to leave her alone, well, those were good dreams now. Not nightmares of what could have been lost, but gratitude for what was found. One moment, one choice, one act of kindness. That's all it took to change everything. And 30 years later, sitting in a garden dedicated to his mother, holding the hand of the woman who'd saved him in every way a person could be saved, Jun finally understood the lesson his father had tried to teach him on that viewpoint overlooking Los Angeles. No matter how dark things get, there's always light. You just have to remember to look up. And sometimes the light looks like a woman carrying a stranger through the rain, choosing compassion over convenience, choosing kindness over fear, choosing love when the world says to walk away. That's the choice that changes everything. That's the choice that saves the world, one person at a time, one moment of unexpected kindness at a time. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that one moment becomes a lifetime, becomes a legacy, becomes proof that people can change, that love can redeem, that the darkest past can birth the brightest future. If you're brave enough to choose it, if you're strong enough to believe, if you're wise enough to accept help when it's offered, even from unexpected sources, even from a stranger in the rain, especially from a stranger in the rain, because sometimes strangers become family. Sometimes kindness becomes love. Sometimes one rainy night in Los Angeles becomes the beginning of everything that matters. And that's a story worth telling, worth living, worth choosing again and again for as long as you're given. This is that story. This is how a criminal became a father, how a monster became a man, how darkness found light in the most unexpected place. This is how two people from completely different worlds, with completely different lives, facing completely different futures, found each other in the rain and chose to walk forward together. This is how love saved the world, one choice at a time, just like Zoe taught him, just like his father dreamed, just like his mother believed. This is how it ends. Not with violence or tragedy or the darkness everyone expected, but with family, with love, with two people holding hands in a garden dedicated to the woman who brought them together, with hope, always hope, because no matter how dark the night, dawn always comes. You just have to be brave enough to wait for it, strong enough to believe in it, wise enough to recognize it when it arrives, even if it arrives in the form of a stranger carrying your mother through the rain, especially then.